So let's discuss something good that a content creator tried to turn around and make into something dirty, basically. They tried to sully the accomplishments of this young woman and then also correct some more misinformation being spread by this particular content creator. So let's get started.
What's her name? Oh. Titties! Titties! Yeah, that's what it is!
Aubrey Gonsalves got a scholarship and she's taking pictures with the governor, right? Governor Little. And I'm like, okay, what? Because don't they already have like a shit ton of GoFundMes that they have, gotten together this whole time? I believe that the Gonsalves have raised over $150,000. Where is this connection to the Gonsalves family? Because when I see Aubrey Gonsalves getting a scholarship and taking pictures and them being posted all over Facebook, she's smiling and she seems very, very close to Governor Little. It just makes you wonder. When we have people like Governor Little having such close ties to Mr. Green and now having some sort of tie to the Gonsalves family, taking pictures with Aubrey Gonsalves as she receives more money, people, wake up, through a scholarship. In my opinion, guys, it looks a little fishy, right?
The scholarships that Aubrey received were through the Coeur d'Alene Regional Chamber of Commerce, and Brad Little was their keynote speaker at their breakfast. Every year, the scholarship recipients from that Chamber of Commerce are invited to a breakfast where they are awarded their scholarships, and there is a different keynote speaker or speakers each year. And this is the post about it from the regional chamber. Why shouldn't she look happy? Why shouldn't she get to take a picture with the governor who was the keynote speaker, just like every other scholarship recipient got to do during that breakfast? Okay? She earned those scholarships. She's a very smart young woman. She's earned those academic scholarships, and they have nothing to do with the GoFundMe money that the Gonsalveses have to pay for trial expenses, okay? Her college education, separate from the trial expenses. And no, the Gonsalveses have not raised $150,000 in GoFundMes. I've already debunked you on that in a past video, okay? But why are you trying to take away from this beautiful, intelligent young woman's moment by trying to make it into something nefarious? Like, are you that little of a human being that you have to cut down Aubrey getting scholarships to college? Does it make you feel good to cut down a teenager because she was honored with 2 scholarships and got to meet the governor? Just because her sister was murdered doesn't mean the world has to stop and she can't accept scholarships and shake the hand of the governor. I mean, give me a break. Have some common sense, Nika. Have some compassion. But let's continue.
Governor Brad Little was very, very, very involved in all of this case, okay? He's been running the show behind the scenes, and it's easy to want to point the finger at the little guy, but when you follow the ranks, when you follow the money, we end up in very high, very dangerous places. When we talk about Governor Little, when we talk about Mr. Green, they basically run the town, they run the state, they run the universities. These are very powerful men.
Well, Governor Little does in essence run the state, although not unilaterally. Remember, every state has a Senate and House of Representatives. They have a state legislature. They are who pass the bills. They're who enact and pass legislation. And Governor Little, yes, he does have veto power. He can yay or nay bills. But basically, the state legislature is technically who's running the state. And then all the people that are appointed to the different offices. And no, Little was not running the show on these investigations. Idaho State Police, Moscow PD, FBI, etc. Brad Little is not a law enforcement officer. He's not an investigator. He's not a lab tech. So, no, not running the show. And as far as Scott Green running Moscow, that's not true either. He's the president of University of Idaho. Yes, he has some day-to-day decisions with the university, but the Board of Regents is who actually makes most of the decision. And here's the Board of Regents for Idaho, University of Idaho. So this is the Board of Regents, and they call the shots, basically. They are the ones that the house was donated to and decided to tear the house down. And this Board of Regents is not only over University of Idaho, but they are over all the public institutions in the state. Unlike Washington, where I live, there's not a different Board of Regents for each state university. It's one board. And you can pause and read this because this tells you a little bit more about the State Board of Education and how University of Idaho is governed by the Board of Regents. And this talks about how the State Board of Education is charged with the general supervision and governance of Idaho's public educational institutions, agencies, and school systems. So it is what they call the K through 12 and post-secondary. So they call it K through 20. So it's that same board of 8 members. And one of those 8 members is the superintendent of public instruction, who is an elected official.
Brad Little, is the guy that, says that he always keeps an emergency fund that is utilized strictly for homicide investigations. And Governor Little donated $1 million towards this investigation, right? So, okay, fine. I guess if you're the type of governor that keeps an emergency fund, that's great, I suppose, right? Good. We can't really fault him there.
So it's not Governor Little donating the money per se. He's not donating. It's a emergency fund that's decided upon in the state budget by the legislature, and the governor does get to decide where that emergency funds get sent. And it's not just for homicides. That fund can be used for fighting fentanyl and has been, for relief from other emergencies that have come up. And he decided to use it for the homicide expenditures. And so this article was from 2023, and it talked about how expenditures had already reached $282,109.35 in the investigation. That was February 6th of 2023. And Idaho's not the only state that has this kind of emergency funding. So this is not something unusual. This is not something nefarious.
What I personally found very strange was the ties that Governor Little has to Mr. Green, the president of U of I. And not only did the governor donate $1 million for the investigation, but he also donated a whole other $1 million to U of I. See where I'm going with this? This puzzle, these connections are all over the place, especially when we're talking about money in higher places, right? And this $1 million that was donated to U of I was supposed to have been allegedly utilized for securing the university, for paying for more security and keeping people safe. Where has this money gone?
Well, no, actually, Governor Little did not donate the $1 million to University of Idaho. The state legislature approved the funding. So it's the state representatives, the state senate that decided to go ahead and pass that $1 million transfer from the state general fund to the University of Idaho. And it was not going just for security. says the money will cover Idaho State Police services, increased security, shuttle service, counseling services, vigil, meeting consulting, and a security review. And they did show where the expenses had gone. Let me show you this. So you can see here a lot of it went to lodging Idaho State Police and feeding them because they stayed on campus in one of the old dorms. Third-party security, UI increase in security, consultants to go through a security review and plan, and the comprehensive security policy review and plan, crisis media consultants, the vigil cost, security technology, so getting in brand new technology, that's probably your cameras, other things on campus, student lodging and meals, counseling and crisis support, and the King Road House security. Now, that student lodging and meals was for any students that didn't feel safe living off campus. They were allowed to come live on campus. So it was just different things they were doing to make students feel safe during that time. But this was a breakdown of the expenditures through October 31st, 2023. And the state legislature asked for this breakdown, and they received it. And as far as Brad Little seeming chummy with Scott Green, yeah, any state governor hobnobs with the presidents of the different universities in their states. That's just how working relationships are. I mean, university presidents are under the Board of Regents, and the Board of Regents is under the governor. So this is just teamwork and relationships when you're running state institutions.
There's another thing that's also very odd. Okay, Governor Little, guys, he is the governor that signed the firing squad execution bill into law. Okay, there seem to be a lot of coincidences all over this case. Like,
I'm not quite sure you know what the meaning of the word coincidence is, because this isn't a coincidence. Idaho was considering bringing this back because they had a failed execution because of not being able to get a hold of the lethal injection drugs. Had nothing to do with Koberger, had nothing to do with the Gonsalveses. So this article talked about how lethal injection was the sole approved method, and the firing squad option had been removed in 2009 after never being used. But in recent years, Idaho has struggled to obtain the drugs needed to carry out the death sentences. It talks about the scheduled execution of Gerald Pizzuto that had to be delayed because they couldn't get the lethal drugs. And now, more recently, Thomas Creech, his execution had to be stopped because they couldn't find any good veins with trying to do the lethal injection. So he's still sitting on death row also. So this had nothing to do with Koberger or the Gonsalveses. Now, if he's found guilty and gets the death penalty, then yes, he would be facing the firing squad. But this came about because they have two prisoners that they already had to delay executions on.
and on top of that, just to remind you guys, the governor also appointed the judge. Do you see the connection?
Actually, no. The Chief Justice of the Idaho State Supreme Court is who appointed Judge Hippler to oversee the Koberger case after the change of venue. And as far as being appointed to district court, that was Governor Otter that appointed Hippler clear back in 2013. So he was not appointed to anything by Governor Little.
And when we have a president, U of I, Mr. Green, and then we have Governor Little that was in the same fraternity as the judge, what do you think?
Well, let's see. What do I think? Green attended University of Idaho. and he was in Kappa Sigma fraternity. Okay, so let's look at Brad Little. He also attended University of Idaho, was in Phi Delta Theta. And Judge Hippler attended Boise State University, and it doesn't say anything about a Greek affiliation for him. So yeah, Green and Little weren't in the same fraternity, and there's no way Little was in the same fraternity as Hippler if Hippler was in a fraternity, because Little was in Phi Delta Theta, and Boise State University didn't even get a Phi Delta Theta chapter until 2023. They just colonized 2 years ago. So there was no way Hippler could have been in that fraternity when he went to Boise State University. So no, they're not fraternity brothers. I know, Nika, it's so hard, isn't it, trying to grasp straws, to make connections that don't exist, to try to turn things in this case into something that they aren't. But it's especially was disheartening to see you going after Aubrey. She's a smart, beautiful young woman that doesn't deserve to have the likes of you going after her because she earned academic scholarships for college. Do better.